Damn it. I missed that entire. No, Eduardo, it's not because it's a good one. It's because I'm forgetful. I'll start talking to you guys and then I forget. One more minute. It should be interesting. Who's ready? We'll start calling people's names.
I'm almost.
You ready?
Yeah, I think so. But let me natural. Okay, so I think I'm ready. Let me try it. Growing up with two special sisters made me the natural advocate of. Made me the natural advocate that I have become for those with special needs. That's one sentence.
Your sisters had special needs, one of them?
Two.
Two of them have special needs?
Yes.
Okay. So if you were creating a digital archive, what type of photography would you be using to describe that?
Oh my gosh. Well, I would show well, one of my sisters would not show her disability. She was retarded. Another one had an accident and lost 4 fingers from one hand.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I would show pictures of her and also what she grew up to be. She became business owner of 13 school buses. She delivered kids to school. So it's like so overcoming, right, your disability.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. Who else is ready? Jadi, you ready?
I'm not. There's like a question that is it like really makes you think like, wait a minute, how does my identity shape me? Because it's like I have so many layers. But I think if I could think about one thing, and I know it's kind of cliche, is that kind of cliche? I am a child of immigrants, so I think that my parents' experience and seeing them what they went through shape like who I am, because I had to go through like just being the first one to do many things. So I would say some type of that.
Okay. And if you were to describe that in a photograph, what would that be?
May I suggest something?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Breaking ground. The one who does it first, like the first one who goes to college, the first one who does something for it. Breaking ground, it takes a lot of force to get there, a lot of barriers to break.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah, that would be a good one. I would say like just like my neighborhood, because I feel like maybe that's the foundation for like my parents and myself. So I would say that community.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Angel, I see you. You ready?
I'm ready.
What did you pick?
I put I seemingly got lost in Jason's labyrinth of a home on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, whose white walls matched his own. Todavía estoy buscando la salida.
Who's Jason?
Oh, from middle school. This guy from middle school. This little white boy from middle school.
And how does that define you?
So when I went to this house, I was like shocked. I had never been to a house that was like so many rooms and hallways. I was like, I didn't know people lived like this. And now I find myself like with my like with my education and with now the relative like privilege that I have compared to like my family, it's like I'm like now I'm like more entrenched in that world than I was as a child. And I'm still trying to navigate like how do I even exist in this space? And I think that same confusion that I had as a child is something that I'm definitely still struggling with now. And I think this like thinking about like, you know, borders of Dominicanidad and like what that means to be like you know, transnational, to be multiracial, like all these straddling identities. It's like you get lost in it. So I feel like I just been spending all this time trying to make sense of all of that still. And that was like I was like 10 years old, but that was really the kind of
You
like,
never forget that.
yeah, it was like the shattering moment that kind of was like, oh shit.
So what kind of photograph would you use to describe that?
I think a photograph would be difficult. I had like an image potentially of like a drawing or a painting, which I'm, you know, I do neither one of those things, but I'm thinking of like the Greek mythology Icarus, when the little boy's like lost in the maze in the labyrinth, and having like a really white labyrinth that's like crazy, and then like a little, you know, black brown boy in the middle, just
Got
trying
it.
to find the way.
Okay. All right. Thank you for sharing that. How about you, Alexa?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. The sentence I wrote was, I lived in a town where my gringa accent was a closed door. I was missing the island on my tongue that everyone had. I was missing a home. That's what I wrote.
Okay. And if you could describe that in one photograph?
So if I would describe that in one photograph, it would probably be a maybe like on the Dominican parade we have here in Per Fanboy. With one girl separated from the crowd, maybe in black and white, and everyone else in color.
Okay. Oh, I like that. Thank you for sharing. All
Thank you for
right.
listening.
Gloria?
I thought about this for a long time, and then it's actually is a story told to me by my mother, and it's my conception story. And it's not very nice, but
Your
I was told
conception story.
my conception story. And the conception story is you were born because your father raped me.
Oh my God. And your mom told you that?
Age 6.
What?
Yeah. That was my conception story. And you know that
But at age 6, you don't even know what rape is.
no, but I knew it wasn't good. And what it did was it created a lot of shame in me in a California where already Mexicans or Chicanos were shamed and disregarded. And they're already, you know, we were supposedly called the bastard race, you know, the Spaniards raping the mestizos. And that's really historic because my father was Mexican from Mexico. My mother was from New Mexico. So they already had that conflict between them. So I guess the images, I mean, there's such few images. I would probably show images of Mexico, but it'd have to, I don't know.
Oh, I'm sorry you had to go through that at 6 years old. Oh my God.
You
Any
know,
age is traumatic, but 6?
yeah, and you know, back then and so, you know, I had to understand that and understand how that influenced me and impacted me all my life. So the images would, you know, there's few pictures of them there, but it would probably be, you know, about women becoming damaged in war. Because that was
Okay. All right. Geraldine, are you ready?
So I once told a coworker that I wanted to wash her mouth with soap.
oh God.
What did she say?
And she was hurt, of course. And it made me realize that voice can be like shards of glass, or it can be like bath water. I choose.
Wow, that's so poetic. I hope you have that written down somewhere.
I do.
I love
I
how
mean,
that sounds. So
Yes.
what kind of image would you use to depict that?
I was thinking well, my husband once found a flower just growing like on the side of the road, not far from where we live. And I put it, like in a little vase. And I watched it go through blooming till wilting. And I photographed it at different stages. And I think I would do a collage of those because it was so beautiful at every stage. Like this idea of embracing things as they are and seeing the beauty and like nurturing beauty in what we do and how we see and how we speak and all of that. That would be my image.
Right, I get it. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. All right, what about you, Jen?
This is a run-on sentence, but
Still a sentence.
exactly. In pursuit of the American dream through chain migration and family separation, my parents left my siblings and I in DR with this tío or that aunt for a little while, for some time, long enough to struggle to call my father dad.
Wow. Okay. What photograph or image would you use for that?
I think of this picture that I have, or that my grandmother has, of my siblings and I in DR in like our little blue and khaki school uniforms, like standing outside in the yard, and we just look so like lanky and like underfed. So yeah, that's kind of what I think of.
Thank you. So Eduardo, I see you share something in the chat. Is this related to your sentence?
Yes. It's my sentence. So it's funny because I'm scanning all of my family pictures just because I don't want them to get lost, for both for me and for the next generation.
How many albums you got?
I got like seven of them right now. And I was gonna pay someone to do it, but I was like, the reason why I'm doing it is because I want to be inspired and stuff. So
Find a picture of yourself.
I did. Checking es magnate.
How old was Eduardo there?
So just you let me know. It's fresh off the boat.
Like 11?
Yeah. I must have been 11, 12 because that's when I came to this country. And I posted it on the gram and my friend said, "Oh, el poeta de la clase." And I was like, was I el poeta de la clase? Because I actually remember not being that. And it reminded me of middle school. Apparently, Angel and I need to hang out because I also am writing about middle school. And I'm writing about Prometheus instead of Icarus. So we should hang out, sir. Let's hang out.
Angel is very great to hang out with. Prepárate.
Yeah.
Okay,
so, I know that you're a homebody too.
Oh yeah, yes. So I wrote, during recess, the muchachas sat in the playground with the young boys between their legs, braiding their hair into cornrows as they read in Fly Girl. And I sat across the basketball court reading Fly Girl to myself. Maybe then I would learn what they wanted. Because that is what ended up happening. I came to this country and I was like, pero yo quiero atención, yo quiero amor también. Like, what do I got to do? And funny enough, there was another Eduardo in the class and he asked me to write him a poem so he can hit on the girl that I liked. And of course, like an idiot.
Don't tell me you did it.
Of course I did it.
No way. Did he get the girl?
Thinking somehow, some way she was gonna read it and be like, this can't be you. It has to be the other Eduardo. No. She hooked up with him, of course.
That's good for you.
And
may I interject?
Yes.
Cyrano de Bergerac. Cyrano de Bergerac. There's a story about exactly that. Writing a poem or a story for someone else, so that he could get the girl, and then he falls in love with the girl.
Mm.
The writer then falls in love with the girl. So yeah, similar story. It's a famous story.
I remember that movie
Yeah, they just redid the movie, I think, with the guy from Game of Thrones.
What's the name of the movie?
I don't know, but it came out within the last year. It might be Cyrano. Like, I think that's what it's called. It's just the first name.
I'll Google
it. Spell that. Put it in the chat. I want to watch it. And yeah, Jen, everyone's life is a novela. We're We're all living in a soap opera here.
Eduardo, we would have been good friends.
Ah, yes. I had the gold ones, we had the black ones, man.
Look at his picture. Oh my God, you guys are funny. Okay, next one. Our personal stories often echo larger societal or cultural contexts. How does your personal narrative mirror broader themes? Can you see how your individual story might resonate with many? So as your prompt, reflect on a transformative event from your life, write it down. Now consider, why is your story important? What broader themes or emotions does it touch upon? Is your story something that other folks are gonna identify with, resonate with, connect with you with? What is this story and why is it important? Making you guys think today.
Yes, I was thinking that. How long you want a whole paragraph?
I'll give you 10 minutes. Let me go check my mail while you guys are. 3 more minutes, folks. All right, 1 more minute, folks. Ooh, I can't wait to hear this one. Rosita, you ready? You look like you're ready.
I am okay, I can take it. I'm a sentence away from finishing, but I can.
Okay, so you were writing for 10 minutes. I just want you to condense what you wrote, okay?
Oh, no.
You don't need to read it, just condense it.
Oh, okay.
Summarize it.
All right. So my experience being a sibling of 2 sisters who were special. My story reflects on many areas of the higher, bigger global scene. It would reflect the history of the disabilities movement that move away from denying people with special needs and education. I would speak about my heart would break every morning when our school bus picked us up, and I would hear my sister cry like down half block. I was like still here in the bus. I was still hear her crying. It will reflect on mothers, little helpers of the world, who are expected to take responsibility for children we didn't have, we didn't bear, we didn't fuck for. I didn't put that in the writing. I refrained from it, but since we're talking, I can say it. It would children who would take us away from the focus of being children ourselves.
Okay, so why is this story important?
Why is it
share? Yeah, why is your story important to share? And what part of that story do you think other people will resonate with or connect with?
Oh, well, being I'm sure there are many little mothers, little helpers out there who don't even women's liberation didn't even touch on them, and how they are denied a childhood basically because they're busy being adult mothers when they're still babies. It would resonate, I think, with the disabilities movement. it would reflect on also the American migration, because she again was left behind.
Okay.
And my sister who lost 4 fingers. I mean, people with disabilities, with accidents, deal with, or even people who are not able to walk, would you spina bifida, another way people because it puts them in a position of being disabled, unable. It's kind of a prejudice. But the fact is that they mostly want to prove that they can do things in spite of the fact that they're in a wheelchair, in spite of the fact that they're missing a hand.
Very
A
important.
struggle. I think that's like
Thank you.
so important.
Are you writing these stories down, Rosita?
Yeah, I wrote all of that, but you said to talk it out, not to.
No. I mean, aside from this workshop, are you writing them down? Are you?
No, it's the first time.
Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate your topic.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. Gloria, you good?
Yeah, I'm good. I'll talk it out. It's 7th grade, and I am the kid that all the white chicks want to beat up. And so I had a best friend there, Donna, who asked me to take care of her boyfriend. Her and her older sister, they had to move. Their father was a bartender, and so her boyfriend Daryl, he was the first kid who kissed me. He was a black kid, and he kissed me, and I was thrilled. And the next day, this white chick came up to me and accused me of stealing her boyfriend. And there's 7 popular girls. They would attack me in the hallways. And it was always panicky for me. And this one time we were supposed to fight after school. And it was at 3:00, the bell rang, and then we went in the back of school, and there was like crowds of people. It was, I was panicking. And in the midst of all this, two black teenagers, young girls, came up to me. They said, take your earrings off, put Vaseline on your face, don't let her get you. And I was so moved by this because, I went to an all-white school. So these were the first girls who came to help me and, stand by me. In that moment, I understood what solidarity was. And I understood what intersectionality was. And I understood that these black girls saw my brownness as something positive.
Got it. Now, can you share why your story is important?
Because it's about being able to overcome.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about bullying and being able to overcome and standing up for other people who are weaker. It's about the importance of knowing your history. Everyone thinks California is so liberal, but no, it was very racist, and it still is. So I think all of this comes together to understand who we are as young kids growing up, and why it's so important to have that cultural, strength in you.
Thank you. Yes. So as we go along, folks, I hope that these stories that you're writing down, that you're actually continue to write them and flesh them out. I think they're wonderful stories that, and if you feel comfortable, share them with other people aside from the Writer Salon, because again, you're sharing why your story is important. They're definitely universal. People do connect with them. People do resonate with them. We're not the only ones going through these struggles and through these challenges. And your story may inspire someone else, right? I mean, when Gloria started telling her story, I immediately thought of a middle grade novel, right? That touches on these topics. Because I love Latino middle grade. I think they're wonderful, and we need so many other topics to be spoken of. But yes, who's next? Alexa, are you ready? Not you, Alexa.
Oh. I get that a lot at home.
Workshop.
I get that a lot
My
at home.
Alexa says she's ready when I am. Maybe I should ask her why she's important.
Oh, she might have a better answer than me.
In this digital age.
Seriously.
Go on, Alexa.
All right. So I initially wrote about visiting my grandmother while she was in a nursing home and up until her funeral. Because when she was around 50, she had diabetes, she had like high blood pressure and all these health problems. And it's mostly because of what she ate. And my grandmother was a wonderful woman. She cooked with so much passion, with so much love, but she also cooked with so much oil, with butter, with everything. She fried everything. I loved her to death, but she refused to let anyone tell her what she could and could not eat, with that Dominican stubbornness that I feel like I got. I ended up getting anyway. But I just want to think back on those days and how much as she loved the culture and her food and her love for it. It made me think that it also didn't help her in the right way. So I felt like I wanted to tell that story and the importance of, as much as you love your culture, you have to know which parts of it to keep with you, which parts of it you should consume, and which you should appreciate, but also accept that some parts of it need to be, I don't want to say cut down. I'm trying to find the right word for it, but there's the right parts of your culture to consume, and maybe some new cultures need to be brought in so you can take care of yourself more.
So what are the overall themes in your story?
So I was mostly thinking of like the importance of food culture, of healthcare, family, and also grief.
Okay, thank you. Geraldine, you ready?
I am. Thank you. Okay, I'm just gonna read you what I wrote. It's
Okay.
easier. They told me I was a disgrace because I was the chosen one who let everyone down. Because my hands should have shattered the glass ceiling relentlessly. Except my eyes looked to the sky and I got lost in a flutter of clouds, embodying what was true for my people before we weighed ourselves against coins. Then and now, our existence is enough simply because we are. The idea of this poem was because I was thinking about the idea of being special, actually. So that's why I was very much touched also by what Rosita shared. And I was thinking about how when we come from minority or places where we have like less resources and things like that, we are expected to excel in certain ways, to excel in ways that are deemed productive and all of that, and how it can rob us of our humanity and our right to claim joy.
Oh my God, you and Angel should have a conversation about that. I don't know if he's listening, he's still connected, but that's something he talks about a lot. Go on.
That was basically
I totally understand that.
And it was also inspired by Toni Morrison's speech about the distraction of racism and how basically it keeps us reaching for the highest honors, at least in imperialistic and capitalistic terms, and how being able to divest from it is a radical act, an act of self-preservation and all of that.
Got it. Totally get it. Thank you. So are those your themes? The last you mentioned? Are those the themes in your story?
Yes, the themes are basically how racism robs us of choices. That's the main arc.
Thank you. Okay. How about you, Jada? You ready?
Sí. I just like certain things that I think about. I just remember this one story that I actually wrote about it. It's just like revising it many times. When I was first entering the school system, right before that, like I went to the doctor. My mom said that she took me to the doctor, and the doctor was trying to ask me questions, but I wouldn't respond. So right away, the doctor wanted to label me as special ed and wanted to place me in special ed. But my mom was like, "No, she's not. Do an evaluation on her and just give her speech therapy." My mom translated to her in Spanish. But so they evaluated me, and then they still wanted to put me in special ed, but my mom fought. No, put her in on the speech therapy. So it took a while, but eventually by like time I was in first grade, they were able to put me in speech therapy, like towards the end of kindergarten, first grade. And then when every time she tells me that story, I just thought like, wow, like this lady like knew no English, but she knew how to like advocate for me in my education. Because a lot of people, especially that a lot of people that don't understand certain cultures, they automatically start thinking there's something wrong with them without actually understanding like, no, there could be something else. As I got older and like really started thinking even more about that story, is I came to the conclusion, and just like a lot of reading and research, that it wasn't so much like that I couldn't speak. It was just like my bilingualism, knowing the two languages, got in the way. And at that time it was the Giuliani administration, so they were dealing with like a whole bunch of kids that came from different cultures. They just didn't know how to handle them, so they just did what they knew best what to do in their own way. But you know, I'm just glad that I had like a mother that knew how to advocate for me. And I remember that time there was like, if you come to Inwood, like Dykeman, there's a school by the FDR that opened in 93, and there's like a bridge there, but when it opened, that bridge was not there. And I remember, and then my mom and a group of parents that knew little to no English, she says they were like fighting with the DOE to build that bridge so that the kids could go up the bridge, not cross the street. So I just think about those two stories, and like, why would it resonate with people? I would say that it would be like strength, like powerful, and like resilient, just like pushing through and like advocating for things that are right and right for like your kids and your community.
Thank you.
If that makes sense.
Thank you so much. Eduardo, what about you?
I kept it going with the story that I was writing simply because it's the first story that won't hurt me to write. So I'm gonna follow through with it. But I think it's a story worth writing simply because it'll touch upon hyper masculinity at such an early age, you know, and how little parental guidance we had around that subject. I'm proud of who I am as a person. I was a chubby little intelligent neurodivergent child. But the truth of the matter is that as every young person, I was like, parece que no me quieren. And like, that's a very sensitive subject for a lot of men right now. And I think it's actually good and bad that Latinos are so open about their hypersexuality, because we have a tremendous amount of knowledge to contribute to white America, really. Right now,
why did you feel unloved at that age?
Because I saw my parents, my dad being un picaflor, and me either having to become like him and associate myself with all of his negative traits, or what I saw to be negative traits then, now I see as a survival mechanism, or lose my identity, which then magnified with the immigrant trauma of like assimilation just an act of survival, like triples down. And like, for example, something that came to mind listening to all of you, thank you so much. This is a great session, by the way. Great. Something that came to mind is, you know, I don't know who was born in Santo Domingo in DR, but as a young person, we would put mirrors on our shoes because during recess, we would put our feet in between the little girl's legs to try to peek. And I have to tell you, looking back, yo nunca vi nada, but that's what they told me to do. A little tiny little mirror that can maybe you get a peek, but that's what you see growing up. Then I moved to this country and I'm like, I have no friends. I have no identity. I have nothing. How do I become the thing that's desirable?
Hey, please tell me that's not how you thought.
No, well, I'm a human being. I want to talk about all of this. Of course, now as an adult, I think differently, but like, this is what I really want to talk about. So the reason why I want to bring up these topics is because for good and bad, we know intimately how traumatic it can be for families to destroy themselves from the inside out, whether it be cheating, franchising fathers with multiple families all over the place, brothers that you discover in midlife, as I did when I moved to this country. I discovered that I had a brother. Thankfully, we get along now, but I never knew. And then with no examples of what healthy masculinity looked like, we can only really look onto what's around. And I see that happening now in a greater scale in white America, which basically looks like, how do I become this like hyper macho man? Because if you're going to give me the option between being soft and outspoken and understanding, or being like an alpha dude, I know that even if I become the bad guy on my own story, one of those things I've seen works better than the other. And I don't think it's true. It's just that we have no examples of what the other side looks like. And so the Latino common struggle with cheating culture, multiple families, hypersexuality, has a tremendous amount of wealth of knowledge to contribute to what is now our new home for how do we start healthy families and don't repeat the generational trauma that we saw going on, you know? And so that's really why I want to talk about all of this. It really isn't about like, you know, I'm reading.
God, we're gonna need therapy after we read your book.
Buen mundo.
May I add my analysis of what you're talking about, Eduardo?
Mm-hmm.
You know, in our youth, there was no contraception. So the way to prevent girls from getting pregnant was to keep them locked up in the house while the boys go out and play, and taught us to reject men no matter what advances they ever made. That was what we had to do. So what happens is when you are too strict on one side, society will have a way of like doing the extreme that is also extreme. You know, the other side would also be as extreme as the repression, because it's seen as liberation, it's seen as going against norms that are not fair. It wasn't fair to keep us locked up, so boys did the opposite in the extreme as well. So don't forget that we were all reacting to the rules of the game. And that back then, maybe it was essential because otherwise we would have a lot more babies than we need to, especially, you know, straddling young women with babies that, well, you know the story. So don't forget that especially in our countries, it was so strict, you know, that Catholic religion was so strict on the girls. The boys could do what they want. They were taught to grab. They were taught to, you know, push. They were taught to, yes, they wanted, you know, you go ahead. When we wanted sometimes, not all the times, but we couldn't because the repercussions were tremendous on girls. So try to put yourself into that context because it's not about you being a bad boy. It was about what was influencing you then. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes. Yes, I do. I have too much, but yes, I do. Go ahead.
I just want to get on what Rosita was saying, and this is in this country. In my generation, I grew up in the Seventh-day Adventist church, and when I had my first boyfriend, my mother made my sister chaperone me on all my dates.
Right.
They made my sister hate me.
Thank you for sharing, Eduardo. Jen, I think you're next.
Yes, super interesting topic and triggering. But yeah. I also kind of stuck with the first story, but I specifically wrote about when my family and I when my dad when my brothers, my siblings and I nos dieron la cita. And we had to go to the consulate, and the consulate told our father that he could only take 2 of us and that he needed to pick.
Wow.
Which was like, hey, which of your 3 kids do you want to like take to live with you? It seems really like asinine and evil to do
Which
that.
one do you want to leave behind? Yes.
Horrible.
My oldest brother stayed behind. But that, I think, just like the whole experience, I think, is just reflective of like the plight of generation 1.5, you know. I think there's a lot of my cousins went through the same experience. A lot of my friends went through the same experience of having our parents leave the country when we were 2, 3, 4, 5 years old. And I think a lot about what it means for our psychology, for our relationships with our parents, for our relationships with ourselves, and our identity and our culture to be kind of just left. Because it's really hard as a kid to sort of know how to interpret that as anything other than abandonment. And I think it's taken me my whole adult life to try to reestablish that relationship with my parents. And it's still not fully there. So I think, there's a lot of people who've gone through that same experience. It also makes me think about the child separation policy at the border and how much suffering that causes for families, and especially the trauma that it causes for children. And just, I think I see all of this as a continuation of colonialism and the ways that colonization separated our ancestors from their children, Native American or Indigenous and Black and African slaves who were just, taken from their families. So I think it's like this system is still in place in this just more sort of bureaucratic paper trail way, but it's still there. And the goal is still to keep people away from each other for the purpose of money,
Right. So what do you think are the broader themes of this topic?
I mean, I think just that, like dealing with abandonment and separation due to migration, and just still continuing to deal with a system that wants to separate families. So I don't know if that makes sense as a theme, but sure.
Yeah, these are all such heavy topics, guys. Like, I did not think this workshop was going to bring all of this up. So I am sorry if these topics are triggering, but know that you're in a safe space and you're sharing with folks that could definitely identify with what you're sharing. Did I miss anyone sharing on this
I think exactly what we're talking about is exactly why we all need to write and share these conversations.
Right.
So
I encourage you all to please finish these pieces. Gloria, did you go?
Oh yeah, I did.
Okay. All right. So next one, let me see. Okay, so the next one is, our shared and personal histories are increasingly stored digitally. Why do you think it's important to preserve personal narratives in the digital realm? Do you feel the digital age has made it easier or more challenging to preserve authentic narratives? So how many of you are here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. Rosita and Alexa, I'm gonna pair you both together. You could chat together, do a private chat. Eduardo and Geraldine, do a private chat for this prompt. And Gloria and Jen, do a private chat with this prompt, okay? So the prompt is, I paired you up, okay? So what common threads or themes do you both identify with your stories? You've been listening to each other the entire time. Jadi, you could share with me, even though I haven't shared anything. But
are you going to put us in a breakout room or something?
I said do a private chat.
Oh, I see.
Okay. So go into the chat, look up the person I paired you with, send them a message, not to everyone.
Right.
Just the person.
A
Everyone
direct
knows how to
message.
do that?
Alexa. Yeah, click on everyone on below the chat and pick your
pick
partner.
the person I paired you with.
Right.
And then you chat with them. The prompt is listen to your partner's tale, which you've been doing this entire workshop. What common threads or themes do you both identify with?
Right. Then you should get a red message that says direct message. And then you start typing.
Yes. I do not need to see you messaging everyone. You have 5 minutes. Oh my God. Somebody's playing some crazy rock music or something. This is Washington Heights. Gloria, it might reach you in a few minutes. That is crazy, this music.
I just hear it right now.
It's crazy.
It's like a car.
Oh, actually, I think it's Dembo. It's El Alfa. Whatever song of his, but I recognize it. 5 minutes, folks. So this workshop is going to go a little bit above the time. I understand if you got to go. I can share the remainder of the recording with you. Don't feel any pressure to be here, but we're probably going to go. Let me see how many more. How many more we got to go? Jesus Christ.
Is that a new prompt you put on?
Ignore it.
Okay, okay.
Work on the other one.
Right.
Okay, guys, you ready?
Yes.
Okay, the first group, please share.
Who's the first group?
Rosita, your group first.
Oh, okay. Thank you. So we shared how we growing up we were witnesses to the hardship that our loved ones faced. In my case, my sister losing her hand, and also my other sister who was retarded. And for Alexa, it was her grandmother and her diabetes. And so her grandmother loved to cook and show love with her food. So being a diabetic, she couldn't do that. If she did, she took risks.
Thank you. Geraldine, you're next. Your group is next.
Hi, sorry. I'm not quite sure. What are we supposed to do?
Share what you guys spoke on with, like, you and your group.
Okay, so Eduardo and I, we basically talked about the fact that, wait, let me just check it. Maybe he wants to take it up from me because I need a minute. Like what it entails to come from one community and aspire to a certain social status and like success and everything. But that means sort of leaving the community we come from to rejoin another, and the sacrifices that entails, and the alienation also, because we grow apart from the people, like for example, we grew up with, or the country we came from. And yes, and we were discussing like how to navigate all that. Like, do we assimilate, or like, those were the questions we were exploring.
Thank you. Eduardo, you want to add to that?
So we as first generation immigrants are going through a little bit of an identity crisis, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Mm-hmm. The problem is that, as many of you have heard, what I really want to talk about is what comes easy isn't always what is right. I, being the most light-skinned, most entrepreneurial, most artistic member of my family, am expected to assimilate to white America. And to be honest, I'm rather good at it. Code switching was a thing that I've done before I knew what that word was. But the irony is that the reason why I've been so good at being an American was to protect my family from America. And that
I love it.
Very traumatic. And as many of you know, I basically woke up to this theory around the time that my father was passing away, and we were expected to be one way in one group of people and another way in another. And what pains me is that I've seen a lot of Latinos, although this applies to everybody. I hear Geraldine is in Switzerland, which is really cool. We need to talk about that. But what ends up happening with this first generation is that what would be easy for me is to marry white and move on and go, okay, my parents sacrificed a great deal to bring me to this country. I guess they must have thought that this country had it all together. So I'm going to become American now. However, I have witnessed it as a first generation immigrant. But that also places you in a point where you notice what is not really working in the system. And the irony on top of it, I think, is that the system doesn't really work unless I co-op into your system to begin with. So if your system doesn't work without me in it, then it doesn't work to begin with.
I love it.
That's really trippy when you think about it. But thankfully, there are spaces like this where we can talk about it, especially because I do believe that creating art is how we will eventually tell the next generation, yes, we've sacrificed a lot to bring you to this country, but here is the beauty and the magic that brought you here. No, I don't want you to come to my rescue. In fact, I want you to be yourself, but it's not about their way of doing things is the right way. It's just a different way. And we will also get to define what it looks like for us to be American. And then I'll close it up with this because I can keep going. Latinos, I think, especially the first generation of Latinos, are going through what so many other immigrant groups went through. The Irish went through it, the Jewish went through it. Really, everybody went through it. And those groups of people are rather cemented into white America now, you know? But it's still shocking to have a Black president. So I wonder when a Latino president, you know what I mean? Like, give me 100 years and I will be running this country. And so we are at this very interesting precipice where we get to define what Latino Americanness looks like. And I think that we have a lot to bring to the narrative and to the culture in itself. So it's interesting, it's painful, but I guess, you know, it is what it is. We have to do what we got to do in order to make sure that the right stories are told. So yeah.
If I may add, it's painful and it's also joyful. Like the fact that I grew up in Cameroon and I now live in Switzerland, it makes it so clear to me, like, what is awesome in each place, what is lacking in each place, and how I can take from both culture and create something new. Like how I can imagine a life that is successful, not only in terms of what has been historically taught to us, but in terms of what makes us like gloriously, joyfully human. And I feel like that's something like, at least I can speak for myself. I don't know about other people, but a lot of us, we call ourselves Afropeans, by the way, it's a term. We are in a privileged position where we understand what came before, and we're like, okay, how can we bring this in the future with more joy and more freedom? Like, it's a beautiful time.
Beautiful.
Who's next? I think you all shared.
No, Yen and I need to go.
Okay, go on.
We talked about, although we're from different decades, generations in itself, we talked about what we have in common was childhood trauma, you know. And I think in the act of existing within that trauma, Yen told me that she was born in the Dominican Republic and she came here, and actually she was harassed by other Mexican American children and called out for bad hair. And then whereas, and this is for me new, thinking about being Mexican American, Spanish, Indian, Portuguese, all these different bloodlines, and being in California internally colonized and being told that we did not belong on our own lands. So yeah, all that trauma embedded in there. Do you have anything you want to add, Yen?
Yeah, I think it's kind of, I'm trying to connect this to what Eduardo was saying, because it's like this definition of Latinidad, which is so kind of controversial and vague and because it's sort of like, it's a hierarchy, right? So even within this like Black and white world that we live in America, there's still like a hierarchy within that. And what I was trying to explain to Gloria is like this, it's something that racism and these sort of systems that work on us are like trickled down into like our own communities and even our own families, because I'm like, these little girls in middle school that were making fun of my hair and all of this stuff, they weren't saying anything different than like my mother or my aunt, and so it's just like this idea that racism, and in particular when we're like in the US context, is just, it's almost like inescapable, and we wield it, we use it, we appropriate it. But then it's also true in Latin America, and it's hard for me to, it's hard for me to be like, we're all Latinos, like knowing that the history of colonialism and racism and white supremacy is just, it's also true and existing in Latin America. Like there are wealthy white Hispanic people who are just as preoccupied with white supremacy as white Americans. And so, yeah, that's
It's confusing. I know growing up in California, when you had Mexican coming over from Mexico, automatically we were pitted against each other. You know, the Mexican Americans against the Mexicanos, and because of racism, it's supposed to be that instant divisiveness between each other. But at least I could say for me, as a Chicanos, when we went through the Chicano movement and named ourselves, that was very powerful to name ourselves.
Mhm.
And so that for me in 8th grade was stopped from being shaming to being empowering, because there was that Chicano lowrider community that built up as cultural pride. Yeah. Racism runs deep.
Yep, it's a great strategy to keep people fighting with each other.
Thank you for sharing. You're muted.
Thank you, everyone. So as see, you all have things in common. Your stories can be very different, but you all have things in common, right? So, moving on, chronology brings perspective.
Angie, may I have a minute? I want to advocate for Dominican foods and Colombian foods and all of our Latin American foods.
Definitely.
Because I hear like, all our foods are also bad.
What? Who says that?
That Mexican food.
There is that attitude that, now I have to be healthy and I can't do, our food because they're bad. Let's not forget that American food is the worst. It's labeled the SAD diet, SAD, la triste dieta. And it stands for Standard American Diet, which is hamburgers with cheese and bacon and
sugar,
sweet potatoes, or just fried potatoes, French fries and Coke, soda, which is really bad on your teeth.
I love Latino food.
So no matter where you are in the world, there's a traditional food that you had, and then you need to eat healthier because that's. But also there's another element to that, and that is a nutritionist explained it to me. She said, what happens in our countries, we work. Just the climate in Colombia, it's so hot you could fry an egg on the sidewalk at noon. We work, and so potatoes are good, plátanos are good, yuca is good, all yautía, all that stuff is really good because we need it. There's a lot of sugar so we can function. Our labor is like intensive. We come here in an air-conditioned office and we sit down for who knows how long, and we do not work our bodies. So all that sugar just doesn't get used up. So the Latin American diet doesn't work here for that reason, because the work practice is so different. But I love it. I love our foods.
I love everybody's food except white people food.
I'm with you on that one.
So, the next one that I was reading here, about chronology, bringing perspective, looking at your life's events in sequence. Were there moments that became pivotal only in hindsight? How does the sequencing of events alter or enhance the narrative? Now, I want you to work on this, but you don't have to, you're not sharing it with the group, okay? Which is just charting out a mini timeline of your life, highlighting 3 significant events. So I'm gonna give you folks 5 minutes. We're not gonna share this with each other. Just chart out the mini timeline. Jen, you have a question? Okay.
I just need to go. So thank you guys.
All right, bye. I'll share the video with you.
Thanks.
Bye.
So what are we doing now?
It's Did I stop sharing the presentation?
It's just one slide that doesn't move.
Yeah, that's the slide that's the slide.
Oh, okay.
That's the one we're on right now.
Okay, the chronology. Yes.
Mm.
Chronology.
I think that's it. Oh. Well, Dominican fried food. Oh, that sounds good. Oh, I bet that's good. Ooh.
Okay, we're gonna move on to the next prompt, folks, okay? Now, also, we're not sharing this one, okay? So Locations are often intertwined with memories. How have certain places influenced your story or your decisions? Do you associate any strong emotions with a specific geographical location? And I'm pretty sure you all do. Right? So that prompt is identify 3 locations pivotal to your narrative. Write down why each place is significant. And I'll give you 5 minutes for that. We're not sharing this. I just want you to write them down. Three more minutes.
Ooh.
We're good? Okay, moving on to the next one. Voice brings a narrative to life. Can you recall a time when someone's tone or inflection made their story more impactful? How does the auditory element shape our connections to a narrative? Choose a part of your story and imagine reading it out loud. How would you modulate your voice? What emotions would you convey? I do not need to know this. It's just for you, okay? For you all to think about when telling your story.
I'm sorry, can you please come back?
Oh, did I miss? Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Mm.
Oh my God, what is up with all this music? People are going crazy with Indigenous Day.
Cute, the Popeye.
Holy crap. Okay, we ready to move on to the next? Real-time storytelling fosters immediacy and connection. What are the challenges and benefits of telling your story in real time to a live audience? How does immediate impact influence the storytelling process? So here you would draft an outline for a 10-minute webinar or conversation where you share your story. Think about the introduction, engagement, tactics, and conclusion. So this is if you wish to formalize your story as opposed to just sharing it in a group setting like you have been sharing it in this salon today. And just for you to think about if that's ever your intention. Okay, so this is for you to do later if this is your intention, a 10-minute conversation, sharing your story. Okay, now, curating a digital archive is a deeply personal endeavor. What stories or events would you consider most pivotal in your life? How do you decide what to include or exclude in your personal archive? And I think that we've discussed that during the workshop on what stories you feel you would be sharing. You know, when creating the digital archive, envision it, what categories or themes would you have? Which stories would be the cornerstones? Because of course you can't put all your stories, right? So you would need to pick a theme that would be the cornerstones of who you are, right? And that's what you would be presenting in your digital archive. So also there's collaborative storytelling, which merges diverse voices. How can collaboration enhance a narrative? Can you think of a time when a collaborative effort led to a richer, more multifaceted story? And I think here, just by pairing you guys and you guys listening to each other's stories and that resonated with you and connected with you, there would definitely be some sort of collaboration if it ever comes to that. Because again, you were all able to connect and understand one another's story, right? And the last slide is, as we conclude our journey today, let's reflect on the transformative powers of our stories. How has today's workshop reshaped your view of storytelling, and what new ideas or methods are you eager to explore? So this I do want you to share out loud, okay? Reflect on what you've learned. Don't write a commitment statement just yet, but let me know, how will you use this type of storytelling in the future, if at all? Anyone could go first.
I have a friend, and we were talking about collaborating, and this helped me understand her experience would be as a Puerto Rican from New York, and mine would be as a Chicana, growing up in our different religious institutions and our feelings in that, and probably our transformation through that time. I could see her and I doing something like that.
Nice. All right, next. Damn, you guys are going crazy in the chat. I didn't even get to read any of this. You guys are talking about food in the chat. DWA field trip. What? Oh my goodness, guys.
Yeah, that would be lovely.
I'm like, why is Gloria mentioning Popeye? Why is Rosita laughing? All in the chat talking about food. Geraldine, I hope you have some good food out there.
Yeah, hombre. It's 1 o'clock. We're hungry.
Wow. Okay, who's next? I'm ignoring the chat.
I think I'd like to go next. It was very interesting. In a way, I feel like your method was a little sneaky. Just got us to write one sentence. It seemed so innocent, but then it went so deep. It was just wonderful. I was able to identify a piece of myself, and that's the natural advocate that I grew up to be, that I had never seen before. I mean, and I do it so naturally, and actually I flagellate myself for it most of the time.
You
but
think
I
you discovered something new about yourself today?
Well, there was a shift. I had seen it, but I had seen it as always critical, because I'm a Virgo, I said. So I'm a, but today I advocated in two places, one for men when the brothers share, and one in the food. It's just so natural to me. But it's always, I thought I was just always bucking the sister.
We started with your sister story.
Yeah, but as the workshop went on, you
advocated for them too.
Right. So it's 3 times, see? So more of acceptance of that piece of me. I shifted from being critical of it to, wow, this is wonderful. And I think what I need to do more is identify it when I speak with people. It's not that I'm criticizing them or telling them how they're wrong, but rather let me advocate for, and that will be accepted more, I think, socially. So this is what
Nice.
this workshop did for me. This is
Okay.
wonderful. A shift in
Beautiful.
identity.
Beautiful. Who else wants to share? No one else? No one else learned anything?
Well, I think, well, personally, I learned a lot. Excuse me, I just need to close the door because
I wish I could close the door with this music.
But by the way, I am writing an article titled On Behalf of Men and Boys. And it's about what I have witnessed boys, the kind of racing the boys get, how different it is. And it's not pretty, it's not nice.
I've seen it with my brothers.
Exactly. But they have to tell their own story, and they're not talking, because when they start talking, other boys and men in their vicinity begin to hit on them. They're not allowed to share, like women share of our stories. So they're gagged.
I would say that's true. They're not allowed to access those feelings of vulnerability and shame.
Right. They're not allowed to cry. Yep.
Because they can't.
Well, at this point you can't, but when you were a little boy, you could. And then you were told, boys don't cry.
Oh yeah, my brothers told very young they weren't supposed to cry.
You shut that off. That's right. Early age. And now women get on them. You can't tell your feelings. You can't talk about what, you know.
But then my brothers were also taught they didn't have to clean up.
Oh, absolutely. But there's a piece that's missing, I think, from women's liberation, is observing that this person you're relating to, your male partner, is hindered by their own upbringing.
I agree.
Okay, so that's it. No one else has anything else to share?
Geraldine was sharing.
yes, I guess what I would share is I really like the emphasis on the visual part, because I often think about the words and the audio part, of course, but like the examples that she gave, like location and also the timeline, things like that, like to think about, like, it was interesting to think about an image, like in my mind, or one that I will create, think about what emotions or themes it connects to. So really this is what has been very useful to me today, to really think in such way, like images with themes and all of that, and how to blend them together. So thank you very much. This was nice to explore that.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Anyone else?
You know, I would, when we talked about the visual, I felt frustrated because I come from a pre-cell phone era, pre-internet era. And we used to, we used a little instant camera and all those pictures I have from high school, all those, they're gone. I left them with my mom's and they're gone. So that's a history I would not be able to capture.
Oh. Okay, anyone else? Okay, all right, everyone. That concludes our workshop for today. Thank you for joining me. I hope that you put this into practice, that you continue your storytelling. Now you have another way of telling your stories.
Yep.
Okay.
Great
So
workshop.
if you ever create a digital archive, do let me know.
Absolutely.
Okay. But
Thank
in the
you,
meantime,
Angie.
enjoy the rest of your Sunday. See you next time. Take care.
Bye, Angie. I'm going to contact you.
All right. Bye.
Thank you, everybody.